1, 2. Hello, everybody. All of you. It's Devin, and I am here to do an update on gear. And I have been building this spaceship in the back room for an update series that was going to get into all the gear that I'm using. But as is tradition with me, everything takes longer than I expect, and I end up going further than I probably should. And so that series is still about a month away. So in the meantime, what I want to do is use this video to show you what guitars I am using right now. Every year that goes by, there seems to be certain guitars that inspire music for me. I remember when I was writing Key, I was using a Fender Strat, for example. And then when I finished that album, it was like all the music that was in that guitar got used up. And then I gave the guitar away. Because bam. And this whole period of work has been based around some very specific instruments. And I'm fortunate to have been working with the companies that have helped me design these. And it's about time that I start talking about these guitars because they're so important to me and they're so awesome that it seems like I haven't discussed them enough. And I want to, which is also really convenient because up to this point it's felt like an obligation that this doesn't feel like. Okay, what am I trying to say? First off, I'm going to talk about these guitar picks. I worked with this company, Acoustic Attak, and we designed a guitar pick that I feel like if I don't have them, I don't want to play. Except for one guitar, which I play with my fingers, which I'll discuss in a moment. But these Acoustic Attak pickups, which you'll have a link for down below, not because I'm trying to necessarily sell them, but just because I think they're freaking awesome. And if you use them, I think you'll agree. Anyway, Acoustic Attak, they're called the EarthTone pick. They've got a one corner serrated. They're made of a combination of materials. We've spent about a year trying to figure out what the best thing is for tone and for snap. And the serrated edge gives it digs in for melodic lines. And I love these picks. It's the only ones that I want to use. So there's an endorsement. I truly mean that. Now, for the guitars. I don't like having a ton of guitars. I mean, I'm using maybe 6 guitars, which is a lot of guitars if you only have one, obviously. But I get given guitars. I'm very fortunate for that. But I don't use ones that I don't love. I've done that in the past. I've tried using guitars just because they were an endorsement or they were given to me or something, and it's just stupid ultimately because you end up compromising your work unless you're playing something that you truly love. So I've got 3 signature instruments, one with Framus, one with Keisel, one with Prestige guitars. I also use Aristides and Sadowski. I don't work with those 2 companies in the same sort of official way that I do with Keisel, Framus, and Prestige because I don't need a signature instrument with them. The ones that they have are great for me. So now I work with Framus and Keisel because they've been so brilliantly kind in being able to provide me with solutions for instruments that no other companies have. But they're very specific and they're very unique. And I'm going to start, because I've talked about the Framus ones so much, that I'm going to start with the newest one that I have. And this is with the company Keisel. Keisel used to be Carvin. And I met them through a friend who ended up being their A&R person, Chris Johnson, who's awesome, of course. And he said, well, do you want to try Keisel Guitars? And I said, well, I don't have any need for another guitar. I'm cool with the instruments that I have. But he sent me a little headless guitar, and I at first thought it was ridiculous. I was like, I'll never use this. But not only did I end up using it, but I ended up writing so much music with it, and it ended up becoming such a important instrument in my world because it was really well made, it was really well thought out, and it sounded amazing, that I had an idea for a guitar that I wanted them to make, or to try making, a headless guitar. So I contacted Framus first because I work with them, and I said, would it be cool, because you don't do headless instruments, if I do a headless instrument with this other company? And after a while, after we worked out the fact that I love this Framus Stormbender and I don't want to use anything but that for the things that I use that for, they agreed. And so over the course of more than a year, or more than that, almost 2 years, I began working with Keisel, with Jeff at Keisel, and they helped me create an instrument called the Neo, which is super specific. It's a hard thing to describe to people who don't use it, because they think, well, this doesn't make any sense to me. But I got to tell you, this guitar, this Keisel Neo guitar, is so important to me because it solves so many things. It's every aspect of this we worked on, every bit of it, from, and Jeff, when I met him, I mean, we're different people, obviously, very different people, and he's much more of a, he's a pretty metal type cat in a lot of ways. His guitars are these beautiful instruments, but his ideas for guitar were based on things that I didn't want. I didn't want a metal guitar. I wanted a guitar for ambient music, but not only for ambient music. I wanted a guitar that I only played with my fingers. And I wanted a guitar that when I sat back, it would sit in a certain way. When I am working with orchestras or players, I can demonstrate things, and it's this tiny little alien instrument. The wood that we chose, where the volume knob and the concentric pot, where the pickup selector is, the cover for the bridge, the 3 pickups, 32 frets, so it ends on a high C. The way this guitar is designed is I play it while I'm sitting, right? So the high frets are basically, because that's where my hand lands. If you went to play it like a normal shredding guitar, it might not work in the same way. If we went to play it like a metal guitar, it would also not work that way. But I play it with my fingers. I didn't want any plastic on it, so like the side dots are all the flame maple, and the logo in the middle is flame there. I didn't want like a sticker on it, so I asked them to engrave the Keisel logo into it, so it wasn't like a sticker. I wanted it to be really thick. I wanted it to be heavy. We put a weight in it, the type of material that's in the neck. And this guitar, I just love it. I love it so much, and I play it all the time. And when I bring it when I see it and I pick it up, I'm still, every time I pick it up, I'm like, oh, I love this guitar. I wander around with it. Another company I work with called Moore have made this little unit called the Prime P2, which is it's like the size of an iPod, and it's like a wireless guitar, not wireless, but it's like this little tiny guitar amp. I put it in the strap of this, and I plug headphones into it, and I wander around playing this guitar with my headphones, and it's just, I don't know, man. It's of all the guitars that I use, I love them all, the ones that I'm about to discuss, but this one is just, it's like my heart right now. I love this little thing. It's so great, and it's so well thought out, and the attention to detail that they put into it, and the willingness that Jeff was the willingness that he had to help me articulate a vision that arguably works for probably me alone was shocking. And I was so grateful to the company for doing this, because this is what I wanted. I wanted this little alien ambient guitar, and I write with it and I play with it. I only use my fingers with it. It sits back perfectly. It allows me just to kind of have the headstock. There's no headstock, so it doesn't bump into anything. All the little contours and cuts, everything was, I was so fastidious about all of it. Like it's a bolt-on, but where the bolt-on screws go, we bevel that out so my thumb can stick into it when I'm playing up there. We put like a 1 pound weight in it just so it felt substantial. And I use it for not only ambient stuff, but for when I'm working with people, like with the orchestra, with the choir. This is a guitar I just wear and wander around with me so I can play notes and like explain things. And it's one of my favorite things ever. And I'm very, very grateful for them. And I love this guitar. But it does a very certain thing, it does a very specific thing. And the reason why I endorse multiple companies is because I do different things, and I don't want to compromise on any of it, right? So I don't want to, if there's a guitar that one company makes that kind of fits the purpose of a guitar that I use from another company, I'm not going to use that just because I work with them. I'll use what's right for me. And so when I endorse something, I really mean it. This is amazing for me. I mean, they also make it with the Fishman pickup that's in everything else that I make, because they wanted to have a more metal version of it. But for me, this guitar is I love it. It's a hard thing for me to explain. The Keisel Neo. It's available, and it's this beautiful little weird thing. All right, so next. So I've been with Framus Guitars for about a decade. And in the same way that I worked with Keisel to design the Neo, I worked for years with Framus to design this, the Framus Stormbender. Right? This guitar is the meanest sounding guitar that I've ever played. I remember when people first tried it, they were like, "Wow, it's so big, it's so heavy, it's like, it feels like you're driving a truck." And people a lot of times want a light guitar, and they're doing lots of shredding and all this sort of thing. And that was my shred. And so at first people were like, "I don't understand this guitar." But I got to tell you, there's nothing like this guitar. It is literally the meanest guitar that I've ever played. And it consistently kicks my ass when I go to record with it. Nothing sounds like this guitar. It is so heavy sounding. The reason why we designed it the way that we did is I loved the sound of this Les Paul Custom that I had. But I just didn't like playing a Les Paul. It just doesn't work for me. It's like too small and too funky, and But I asked them to make it so it's like a set neck, but it feels like a through neck. It's a big, thick, heavy mahogany body, big, thick mahogany neck, maple top, carbon fiber in the middle. I have these Fishman Transcendence pickups that I've been using for 7 years or so, that I designed with Fishman, that are amazing. They're my heavy sound, but also the thing that makes those Fishman pickups so cool is there's two voices. You've got the heavy metal one, which is the basic crunch rhythm tone, but when you tap it, we've got another tone in the Fishman that we designed that's like a low noise single coil sound with a lot of low ends. So when I put it into that tap mode and put this Framus Stormbender into the middle position and then play it through a clean sound with compression, there's nothing like it. It's like one of the heaviest sounds. It's amazing. And the attention to detail on the Framus guitars is shocking. It's amazing. It's like we've got the big Grover tuners. The neck is bound. It's got lights that are just. It's an ebony fretboard. It's everything about this guitar. The depth of quality that Framus makes with guitars it's unlike anything. There's no company that I've tried that makes guitars that are as beautifully engineered as these Framus guitars. It's like a Rolls Royce. It's an astonishing guitar. And I keep this one in C. I've got the rainbow one, but we keep that in Europe just so we don't have to ship it, right? And but they're sort of flip-flop back and forth. The rainbow one, I asked them to make it a little thinner and a little lighter just for live. And it sounds amazing. And it's the attention to detail is just shocking. But this one, this is literally a tank. And there's no guitar that I've ever played that sounds as heavy as this guitar. I absolutely can't get enough of it. Okay, so next, we'll go in terms of the guitars that are signature guitars. So, this is an acoustic that I designed with a Vancouver company called Prestige Guitars. I met them at NAMM years ago, and we came together and we designed this guitar together. As an acoustic player, I'm not like a fingerpick guy, really. I like to strum. I just like, strumming solid. I grew up with Johnny Cash and all that sort of thing. And I wanted an acoustic guitar that just sounded strong, felt super sturdy, and had like a ton of presence in the top end and just solidity throughout. We put the Fishman electronics in here, the Infinity, and this guitar is just, I'm waxing poetic about these guitars because, man, I designed them with these companies and I fucking love them. These are amazing instruments for me. I don't want to use anything else. That was the idea, is I wanted to design instruments so that I didn't need to use anything else. And I've been using the same guitars, like I've been using that Framus since the day I got it, like on everything. And the Neo now, I use it every day. It's like, and this Prestige acoustic is called the Empath acoustic. And it's, the attention to detail with all of this stuff, which is like the herringbone inlay, a little Canadian flag there, the contours that are made out of, I guess that's a flame maple on front and back. It's Adirondack spruce, I think, and this particular one has got the tempered tuning system on it, the tempered frets, and so I use this one in standard, and that is kind of where a lot of, like, for verses and things, I tend to just aggressively strum, like really beat on the guitar, and this guitar is just. It's been nothing but a joy. I love this. It's my acoustic guitar, the Prestige Empath. All these ones, there's links to it below here. I know this is sort of maybe a little silly of a video, but I've been meaning to do it for a long time, and I couldn't think of a great way to do it other than just to talk about it. So here I am talking about it. All right, so. And then the last one that I'm using right now. Now, this is a company that I don't, it's not like I'm working with them in a official sense. I don't have a signature instrument with them. They're nice people. They have provided me a couple of guitars. They're great people, actually. But the thing I want to say about this, so this company is called Aristides. And I have always loved Telecasters. From as far back as I can remember, my favorite guitar was like a Telecaster. The Stormbender does something that a Telecaster can't. But because I love Telecasters, because so much of my work in the past has been written and performed on a Telecaster, I wanted to get a Telecaster that would be like for live. I met a colleague of mine, Isan, and he said, have you tried these Aristides guitars? I said, well, I'm working with these other companies, and I don't really have any need for another guitar. He says, well, I know that you love Telecasters. They're putting out a Telecaster. And they sent me this, and it's the coolest Telecaster that I've played. I just love it. Just love it. And the reason why there's, it's not like an official endorsement in the sense is because I'm just using a guitar that they make, right? And so I'm talking about it because it's awesome. And the things that I like about it. Okay, so what I like, I forgot to mention EarthTone is just like I've spoken about until I'm blue in the face. Unless it's the Neo, because it's headless, so they can't do EarthTone for that. If they did, I'd put that on there too. Cosmos. I put EarthTone on all these guitars, and these Aristides ones, they're not made out of wood. They're made out of like a type of resin, so they're injection molded. But they're like alien spacecraft, these things. And because in my mind, I'm a perfectionist, but I'm not perfect. So that's a hilarious combination of circumstance. These Aristides guitars, when I first pulled them out of the case, I was like, oh, these are perfect. Like, they're perfect. The lines, the details, it's like understated and subtle and perfect. And it scratched an itch that I didn't know needed scratching to play something that when I pick it up, it's like they're identical to each other. They're perfect. And they sound killer. The thing about the Aristides, I keep this one in B. So the Stormbender's in C and this one's in B. The thing about the Aristides is it's a real focused sound. It's like controlled. It's the top and the bottom is you can fit it into a mix really well because of where the frequency range. Like the Stormbender's wild. It's like so much low, so much high. It's like just this devilish thing, right? But the Aristides is very refined sounding and feeling. It's got a really consistent crunch. It's got a really cool sound, and I love playing it. So for the other guitars that I use live, use a Stormbender for the ones there, but I use the Aristides because I just love Telecasters and I love playing it, and that's the reason, and they're great. So, hooray. But we had talked at one point about, like what we would, if I wasn't working with Framus, for example, like what would I need out of that guitar to do a signature? And I don't need anything different. Therefore, we don't need to do a signature. But it's a really great guitar, and I love it. Okay, so we have two more honorable mentions for the guitar part of my world right now. So those three guitars or those four guitars are the guitars for me. The Prestige, Empath, Acoustic, the Framus Stormbender, the Keisel Neo, and the Aristides Model T, I guess it's called. TO model? I don't know. There's two other honorable mentions. And these are guitars that also get used but not to the same extent, right? First one is the first Keisel that was sent to me. It's this Alan Holdsworth guitar. I use this for almost every lead that I do now. This is the guitar that I use for lead stuff. This guitar is, I mean, Alan Holdsworth was a otherworldly genius, and so it only makes sense that his signature model would be in line with that level of like nuance and brilliance. And this guitar it's amazing, man. I love this guitar for lead. I love the size of it. I love the sound of it. It's like this super beefy sound. This one doesn't have the Fishman in it just because when we were out with Dream Theater, Maddie, who takes care of John's guitars, put some of John's pickups in here, the DiMarzios, and they sound amazing, right? They're like lead guitar pickups, and then some, of course, right? But this guitar I use for leads, and I play it all the time. And I mean when I say that this guitar rules. I wrote all of Puzzle, Snuggles, and much of Lightwork on this guitar. It's fantastic. I love it. And then the other and the last honorable mention here is this, which made by Sadowski. Roger's a buddy of mine, and if someone said, okay, you have to have one guitar that you would say is your favorite guitar of all of them, I would probably say this guitar. I've had it for years and years and years. Why doesn't it get as much use as the other? Because it's got a very specific sound. It's almost like soft leads, and I play it with my fingers most of the time. It's got a really thick neck, like super, like baseball bat neck. Vintage tuners. I've done so many modifications to this one over the years that it's, the wiring's all super funky. It's got a preamp and painted pictures on it and stickers, and you know what I mean? It's like this is like my personal guitar in a way. And perhaps the reason why I don't use it on the recordings as much is because I like having a guitar that is unrelated to work. Like the other guitars I use, I love them, but they're all very connected to work. The Neo less so, because I spend most of the time, I spend most of my day wandering around with the Neo. And I'll show you before I go how that works, because it's so cool, man. But this guitar, I play for fun. And Roger built this for me maybe 10, 12 years ago. And it's just the sustain on this guitar, the character of this guitar, the subtlety of it. It's like when you play a note, it registers things that no other guitar registers. It's built by a master, and that's Roger. And when we were at NAMM over January, I told him that too. I was like, listen, I've got 4-5 guitars that are always in my world because I work so much. But brother, I love this guitar so much that you built, and it's just such a magic instrument, right? So there's the other special mention. And then other than that, I've got basses. Of course, I'll do another video where I talk about that, because I have 4 basses that I use. And it's a lot. I understand that it's a lot of guitars, but I do a lot of work, and I do a lot of different work. So having these flavors to draw from with this group of instruments, that's all I need. And I have been using them consistently. Like the basses, for example. I did a video about the 3 basses that I still use. I did a video for that like 7 years ago. It's still the same basses that I use. When I find something that I like, I love it, right? So before I go, I'll show you here, just the last thing. This So this little Neo guitar. Have I mentioned I love this thing? I mentioned that, right? So what makes this so cool for writing and wandering around and performing is it's small, but it's substantial. You kind of have the strap a little lower, not super low. And then I don't use a pick with it, right? I just wander around and this thing, my friends, is, I wonder if in the future, if life ever says, Dev, you know what you need? You need to go live on a beach somewhere and just make beautiful ambient sounds. Well, we designed the guitar for it. And this is it, man. I love this thing. Anyway, that's me explaining the gear. Thank you to the companies that do this with me. You know, it's like I know that some of these instruments are expensive to buy, and I know that some of them are very specific, but the fact that these companies support me and allow me to create these tools with them means that I can't express my gratitude enough for them. So thank you, Framus. Thank you, Keisel. Thank you, Prestige. Thank you, Aristides. Thank you, Sadowski. You guys take care of each other, and I'll see you soon, okay? Bye-bye. Bam.